How's it going, everyone, and welcome to the Thinking Blue podcast. I am your host, Blake Harris. On today's show, I'm going to be talking about the first series of the season that is in the books, and whether or not Dodgers fans should be panicking after splitting this series with a Double-A minor league team. I'll also be sharing my thoughts on the upcoming series versus the Houston Astros and what we can expect from them in those two games, and I'll give you an over-under on how many Astro players I think we could potentially see hit by a pitch. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you go follow me on Twitter at Blake Harris TBLA, where I post a lot of great Dodgers content during the season. If you're a Dodgers fan, it's an absolute must follow. The link's in the description, but yet again, it is at Blake Harris TBLA. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss a podcast. Speaking of podcasts, I am also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so make sure to go subscribe and follow over there. The links to those are in the description of this video, or you could go to those apps and search Thinkin' Blue with Blake Harris. Find me over there, give me a follow, and listen to the podcast wherever you are. But it's time to get now to the Dodgers-Giants series recap. I did a podcast the other day, the day after opening day, so I'm not going to share my thoughts on the first game of the season. But the Dodgers, they split a 4-game series with the Giants. They won the first two, lost the last two, but yet they still outscored the Giants by 12. I was checking this earlier, and I think although it's only been 3 or 4 games for a lot of teams, the Dodgers already have the second best run differential in all of baseball, but that's why baseball is such a crazy sport. It doesn't necessarily matter what your run differential is because your win and loss record can be all over the place. Remember a few years ago when the Mariners were like 1 or 2 games out of the playoffs and they had like the worst run differential in the American League? So that just goes to show in baseball, anything can happen. But yeah, the Dodgers, the Giants, who in my opinion are going to be the worst team in the National League this year, or at least I thought they were going to be the worst team in the National League. So I'll get to the overreactions and just gut feelings when I'm done talking about the series later in a few minutes. But first and foremost, I want to get to the games from the series, my biggest takeaways, and kind of go more in depth on this opening series and what we saw from the Dodgers. Going back to the second game of the series, Ross Stripling, he gets the start and he absolutely shoved. I mean, I was trying to think of a word on how I can pretty much describe his performance, and he shoved. He was fantastic. He threw 7 innings, allowed only 1 run, 7 strikeouts, no walks. The Giants had essentially no answer for him. I mean, they just couldn't figure him out. Ross Stripling, he was hitting 94, 95 on his fastball. His new and improved changeup that he's kind of been toying with, during the offseason. He was doing it in spring training, kind of did it during quarantine. His new changeup looked absolutely fantastic. Now, again, it was the Giants, but considering the Giants won the last 2 games, maybe they're better than we thought, and this actually makes Ross Stripling's performance that much more impressive. But overall, I was just impressed with him. I thought he was fantastic. It really is good to see Ross Stripling getting an opportunity in the starting rotation. I mean, this is a guy where any other team, for the most part, and yes, I'm talking to you Angels, former Angel Ross Stripling, this would be a guy that would be a number 2, number 3 starter on their team, whereas for Stripling with the Dodgers, over the years, I mean, he hasn't been able to crack the top 5 because they have so much depth, they have so many better options, but he finally gets the chance because David Price opted out at the beginning of the season, so now he's going to be a starter throughout the course of the season, which again is great to see because this is a guy, he has the stuff, he has a career ERA of like 3.5, 3.6, so this is a very good pitcher. As I said, an above average starter that would be a number 2 and number 3 guy in most starting pitching staff, so very happy to see him get this opportunity. And I'm really excited to see what he could do moving forward because I think Ross Stripling has the chance. There's no All-Star game this season, so, he's not going to be an All-Star. Is there a potential chance he can compete for a Cy Young in a shortened season? I know it seems like a bold take, but Ross Stripling, he has the stuff, and now that he's going to be getting consistent starts, I wouldn't be shocked to see him in the Cy Young discussion come the end of the year. So Ross Stripling, what a takeaway. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do the rest of the year. Moving on to Game 3, I did have some discussion about Alex Wood here, but I did notice for the Q&A, I did have a question on Alex Wood, so I'm actually going to save my Alex Wood discussion for the Q&A. But moving on, after Alex Wood is Dennis Santana. Dennis Santana, I remember when I saw on opening day when the Dodgers came out with their 30-man roster that Dennis Santana made the team, and that was my biggest takeaway because I just didn't understand why. I know a lot of people are really high on Dennis Santana. He has really good stuff. He's been, kind of like a top 3-4 pitching prospect in the Dodgers organization over the last few years. But what I've seen from him over the last 2 years has been nothing. Again, I get that he has good stuff when it works. He has some really good pitches, but he struggled last year when he came up with the Dodgers. Now, granted, I know it was, I think, for only 9 innings, and a lot of those innings were at Coors Field, but his ERA now, through I think 10 or 11 career innings with the Dodgers, is above 10. That's not a good sign. I know some people have compared Walker Buehler, how he started out for his career and how he turned things around. I don't think Dennis Santana is going to be anything like Walker Buehler, so I don't necessarily agree with that comparison. Last year in Oklahoma City with the Dodgers, I believe he made 27 appearances. His ERA was just under 7. I know in AAA, the baseballs were extra juiced. I believe the league average, earned run average, was, I think, around 5.5. That still doesn't make me feel any better considering the fact that he had an ERA of just under 7 in 27 outings. So Dennis Santana, I get that the Dodgers are high on him. He does have good stuff, and maybe it is a little too early to, jump to conclusions on him, but I'm not high on him. I don't agree with him being on this opening day rotation, opening day roster, however you may say it, over guys like Tony Gonsolin, where Tony Gonsolin, he proved that he's ready. He proved that he is legit, and he's a more than capable pitcher at this starting level. So, again, I'm not going to go too in-depth on it. I'm not going to get too worried about it, but I am a little concerned with Dennis Santana because, again, just over the last 2 years, he hasn't done anything that is just giving me hope that this is a guy that can be a good bullpen piece or potentially a good starter moving forward in the Dodgers rotation. So we'll have to wait and see if Dennis Santana can bounce back. Maybe against Houston he'll be able to, but Dennis Santana, I am worried about him. Joe Kelly came in for his first outing of the season, and he threw 15 straight curveballs before throwing his first fastball. 15 straight curveballs. Now, I'm not sure what, his personal record is, but I can guarantee that he has not thrown 15 straight curveballs, at least with the Dodgers. I mean, Joe Kelly, his fastball is, kind of his bread and butter. I mean, he has that 100-mile-an-hour fastball that just is a fantastic pitch, especially when he's able to get good command over. I know he's been working on his curveball. It's something that he wants to develop a little more. I don't know if it was his curveball this offseason. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was this video that came out of him working out at home where he was throwing into a net and a pitch completely slipped and it broke a window at his house. I'm not sure if that was his curveball. Maybe it was. Maybe he was trying to work on it a bit more. And maybe with his first outing, he was trying to, just see if he was able to get control and command over it. Again, maybe it wasn't his curveball, but I thought that was really interesting that he threw 15 straight. It looked good. I mean, it looked good for the most part. I think he got 2 strikeouts on it. So Joe Kelly, I mean, if he's able to work on that curveball, get it to be, an above average pitch along with his fastball. We saw what Joe Kelly did to the Dodgers in the World Series a few years back. So if we can get that Joe Kelly, I think it's going to be a great piece having in the bullpen. Blake Treinen, I've talked about him in previous episodes. He's the guy I was looking forward to most this offseason. He was the signing I was most excited for. He looked fantastic. I mean, he has some of the nastiest pitches I've seen in recent years. It's just a matter of can he control it. He looked fantastic. Again, it was only 1 inning. It was against the Giants. I'm not going to get too excited over it, but again, a guy that just 2 years ago in 2018 was, in my opinion, the best relief pitcher, probably the best pitcher in all of baseball. Knowing that the Dodgers have a chance to have him in the 8th inning, I'm really excited. So again, 1 inning, he looked fantastic. Jake McGee, he has a few appearances so far this year. He had that rough outing in the, the scrimmage game, I think against the Angels, or maybe it was the D-backs the other day earlier in the week when it was his first outing, and he allowed home runs on back-to-back batters, and everyone was starting to freak out that it was an awful signing. This was a guy that I think literally drove from Colorado to Los Angeles to be with the Dodgers. He was probably running on no sleep, so I'm not going to give him too much grief for that outing. He's looked fantastic the last few outings with the Dodgers, so really excited to see what Jake McGee can do moving forward, especially being a lefty out of that bullpen. The Dodgers desperately need a left-handed guy to come in and be a shutdown guy, so Jake McGee, pleasantly surprised so far in what he's done. Finally, in regards to the starting pitching, Julio Urias, he made the start last night, and I thought he looked okay. He didn't look great, but he didn't look awful. I did like seeing his fastball hit around, I think at 97 was the fastest he was clocked at, so that was great. But overall, I mean, he struggled with his command. He really struggled to finish hitters off. I mean, it seemed like he had, 9 or 10 two-strike counts on hitters, and he just couldn't seem to put them away. Guys were battling off, fouling off pitches, or they would just ground out, fly out, get a base hit. It just seemed like he wasn't able to finish those guys off. He easily could have had 7, 8 strikeouts, it seemed, but I think he only finished with 3. So, again, Julio, Just okay. I was expecting a little bit more, again, especially considering he was facing the Giants, but it was his first start of the season, so I'm not going to put too much stock into it. Hopefully he can bounce back during his next start. So yeah, again, just wasn't too impressed, but wasn't let down. I was kind of just somewhere in the middle of that. But now it's time to move to the hitting. Through the first two games, the Dodgers offense, they looked unstoppable. I even put out a tweet saying, I don't know how this offense is going to have games where they don't score 5 runs. And it seems like that was kind of like at Cold Takes Exposed, where ever since I tweeted that, the Dodgers offense has kind of gone ice cold. I know on Saturday they did put up, I think, what was it, 4, maybe 5 runs, but essentially they only had 1 run through the first 8 innings, and it shouldn't have been any more because I think with 2 outs, the Giants, they had an error. It led to the Dodgers kind of getting a little rally going, scoring a few runs here and there. So if the third baseman just makes that routine play, the Dodgers offense likely finishes with 1 run, and over the last 2 games, they finished with a total of 2 runs. Last night, their offense was non-existent yet again. 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. They had 10 left on base. It looks like the old playoff postseason Dodgers offense of old, as we've seen in years past, where they're able to get guys on base no problem. They just can't do anything with runners in scoring position. Last night with Kike, he came up with the bases loaded, had the prime opportunity to tie the game, give the Dodgers a lead. He grounded out to end the inning. In the bottom of the ninth, I think I forget who it was. There was the 3-1 count. I'm trying to think here. Will Smith. I can't remember if it was Will Smith or if it was someone else, but there was the 3-1 count, and actually I think it was Cody Bellinger. Yeah, he had 3-1 count. I believe he swung, and potentially could have been ball 4. He flew out Will Smith. He was ahead in the count. He got out, just not really good at bats, in this crunch time. But again, it's early in the season, not going to get too worked up over it. One thing I wanted to touch up on, and that was from the other day, it was on Saturday, was just the absolutely disgusting, sloppy, awful base running that the Dodgers did. They ran themselves into 4 outs, so they essentially costed them more than 1 inning worth of outs. And this is just something that you really don't want to see, regardless if it's the first game of the season or the last game of the season. Base running is just something that you work on all the time. It's something the guys should have down at this point, and they ran themselves into outs. Chris Taylor, a really boneheaded move to get the first out of the inning at third base. I mean, that's just something they tell you in Little League. Never make the first or final out at third base. Chris Taylor did that. Austin Barnes, he got doubled off at first base. Jock Peterson, there was like a blooper in the center field. He couldn't get a good read on it. He was thrown out at first base. It was just really sloppy base running. And again, considering the Dodgers lost by 1 run and they had 1 1/3 innings worth of outs that they didn't get because of, getting thrown on the bases. I mean, they could have come back and won that game had they been given an extra inning. So really sloppy base running. It was really bad to see. But again, I'm just going to let it go. Hopefully they move on. Hopefully they learn from it, because you don't want to see base running like that anytime, especially 4 outs that they gave the Giants. I mean, if you're given an opposing team an inning's worth of outs, you're likely not going to come back and win that game. So I touched up on the offense, struggling the last 2 games. Again, the first 2 games, they were fantastic. Last 2 games, they've been awful. Justin Turner, he's been the Dodgers' best hitter, as it always seems like he is. This guy's a professional hitter. I jokingly tweeted last night, but even I don't think it's going to be a joke, because I actually think it's going to come true, that when Justin Turner's 40 years old, if he's still around playing baseball, he's going to be hitting 305. This is a guy that is such a good hitter, and even if he doesn't get a base hit, he gives really good at-bats. He'll make the pitchers work. He'll draw a 10-pitch at-bat, and even if he gets out, that's okay. But Justin Turner, professional at-bats, he's looked locked in. He's looked fantastic. Corey Seager, I mean, this guy, he's sitting, I think, what I got it right here, 313 right now on the season. This guy could easily be hitting 713. I mean, I think it was on Saturday, I even tweeted this out. His 3 at-bats, he got absolutely screwed. I mean, this guy, if you were to come up with 3 ways to get out where the defense just robs you of a hit, Corey Seager did that, because he got robbed of 3 base hits. He ended up getting a base hit in his 4th at bat, so he easily could have gone 4 for 4. Last night, some hard hit balls. He was getting out as well. So, I mean, he's hitting the ball harder than I've ever seen him hit. He's hitting the ball better than I've ever seen him hit. So his 313 average, though it is still a really good average, he easily could be hitting above 500. So Corey Seager, I've loved what I've seen from him. He was looking really good in the scrimmage games. He was looking really good in the inter-squad games. So the last 2 weeks, he's swinging the bat fantastically. He looks healthy. Him in the field, it looks like his arm still isn't really full strength yet. He's kind of one-hopped a lot of throws, but I'm not too concerned about that yet. Again, Corey Seager, I said Justin Turner's been the best hitter so far, but Corey Seager has been the hitter that I've been the most surprised. I don't know if surprised is the great word. I guess just happy, I guess, to see. Most excited to see, but Corey Seager, if he can keep this up, watch out. I mean, he has a chance. Again, we've seen it when he's healthy to be a top 3 shortstop in all of baseball. I think he's on track to be in that yet again this year. Moving on to some other guys I just want to mention is Mookie Betts, who currently, among all the Dodgers, has the lowest average and the lowest OPS so far. But, it's been 4 games, so no need to overreact. What he's done on the bases so far, I mean, we've seen him steal some bases, have some amazing hustle plays, being safe at home plate. He's a smart base runner. He's done a great job at that. And in the field, he's shown why he's a Gold Glove winning right fielder. I think like last night on Sunday's game, he caught a ball that was a 50-50% catch probability. He made it look routine. He's run down some balls in foul territory, and he's covered amazing ground. And he almost set the put-out record for right fielders last night. I think he finished with 8 putouts. I think the National League right field record is 10. So I'm not too concerned about the hitting. I know that's going to come. He's doing everything else, so I know some people are freaking out saying, wow, we've overpaid Mookie Betts already. It's been 4 games. Don't worry about it. He's going to be okay. Cody Bellinger, it's been 4 games as well. I'm not too concerned, but if he wants to start hitting the ball, I'm going to be very welcoming of that. But as I mentioned, it's been 4 games. These guys are going to come around. It's all going to even itself out. My reaction, is it time to overreact? So as I mentioned, the Dodgers, they went 2-2 against possibly the worst team in the National League this year. Again, maybe the Giants can surprise us. Maybe they're not the worst team in the National League this year. Maybe they're actually somewhat decent. Maybe they're a 500 team. I'm not going to get too concerned. It's not ideal. I'll say that. I was expecting a 4-game sweep at the absolute worst. No need to overreact or panic quite yet. It's still early. The team is still getting into the swing of things. I mean, if you include their inter squad and scrimmage games, they've only played 10 games. And we see it in years past. The Dodgers normally start off very slowly. I mean, they're normally off to maybe like a 5-5 record through 10 games. I know this year, since it's only 60 games, there's more emphasis on getting off to a hotter start. But especially now, considering that every team makes the playoffs, the Dodgers are going to make it. I'm not worried about them. They're going to be just fine. I'll almost guarantee they're going to make the playoffs, whether that means they win the division or whether or not they're second and third place and they make the division as well. So I get why people are kind of panicking, getting a little worried. But as I mentioned, it's 4 games. On any given night, any baseball team could beat any baseball team, and the offense just went cold. So overall, no need to panic. The pitching's looked great. We still have Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler. They need to come back, so no need to worry. So Dodgers Twitter, especially the last few nights, has been something. I have missed it because anytime the Dodgers lose, everyone panics. So no need to worry. The Dodgers are going to be just fine. Moving on to Houston, I think they're going to be able to bounce back quite nicely. But let's get to my quick series preview for the Astros. It's going to be the first time the Dodgers and Astros have met up since the 2017 World Series, since, the Astros cheated their way to a championship. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see a Justin Verlander Clayton Kershaw matchup because Kershaw, he's out. Justin Verlander, he's either out for the entire year or a few weeks. There's kind of a lot of conflicting reports as to what's going on with his elbow, but the Dodgers aren't going to be able to face Justin Verlander. I'm not exactly sure who they're going to be facing these 2 games, but I'm still looking forward to the Dodgers playing in Houston. Walker Buehler, he's going to make his season debut on Tuesday. I'm really interested to see how he looks. Interested to see how long Dave lets him go because Walker Buehler, he was not really built up enough during the scrimmage games and the inter-squad games. I think he only made 1 appearance, so it'll be interesting to see. There's no pitch count, I think, that Dave was put on Walker Buehler, so I'm not exactly sure if he'll be on a pitch count or innings restriction. So I think Walker Buehler's the kind of guy, I forget who I was talking to about this the other day, where regardless of if he's built up or not, what's going on with him, if I need someone to give me 7 great innings, I don't trust anyone more than Walker Buehler. So I think he's going to be just fine. I'm excited to see what he does against Houston. Is there going to be a hit batter or 2? I'll get to that in about a minute. Dustin May, he's going to follow Walker on Wednesday. There was still some debate on whether or not who's going to get that start on Wednesday, but Dustin May, who's still taking Clayton Kershaw's spot, he's going to get his second start of the season, maybe his last start for a while, depending on when Kershaw comes back. I think there's some talk of Clayton coming back this weekend at Arizona, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm excited to see Dustin May get his second start. He was still figuring things out, against San Francisco when he made that opening day start because he was, projected to start the season at the alternate site. So Dustin May, I'm excited to see a second opportunity. Hopefully the Dodgers, they can have their offense come back to form. They've only scored, I think, 5 or 6 runs over the last 2 games. Houston's a great place to do that. It's a great hitter's park. Hopefully the offense can get back to the swing of things. And one thing I wanted to mention, leading up to this series, reporters have been asking players, they've been asking Dave Roberts, what are your thoughts on this series? And they have the typical sports response where this is just like any other series. We have no extra emphasis on this. I call BS. The Dodgers, they badly want to sweep this series. Now, any other series, of course, a team wants to sweep, win every game. But don't tell me this is just like any other series. The Dodger players, they're going to be amped up. They're going to want to make sure they beat the Astros. They want to make sure that they can prove that they're the better team. And it's going to be exciting to see. I wouldn't be shocked if the Dodgers come out and they have, the games of their life because they want to beat these guys so badly. I'm putting the over-under. It's only going to be a 2-game series. But the over-under on total Astros that we see hit by pitches. It's only 2 games, so I'm going to go with... I want to go with like 5 or 6, but I know that's not going to happen. I'm going to go with 1.5. I think there has to be at least one. I know that the Dodgers talk about how they want to be professional and everything, but come on, if you're the Dodgers, you got to have someone, whether it's Buehler, whether it's May, whether it's someone that comes out in the bullpen, you got to have someone that just hits them. Maybe it's Bruce Dark Gratterall that can come in and hit with 101 miles an hour, hit him on the shoulder, hit him on the hip. There has to be at least one, at least I'm hoping for. Again, as long as it's not in a tie game situation, if the Dodgers can just do it in the first inning, or if they're up by 6 or 7 runs late in the game, I'd love to see it. But I'm going to put the over-under at 1.5, and I'm going to set it at over. That's just because that's what I want to see. But I think there has to be at least one. So that's something we're going to have to wait and see. Really looking forward to this 2-game series. Really looking forward to seeing how these two teams react against playing each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. But with that being said, it's time to move on now to the Q&A. As I do at the end of every episode, I ask you guys on Twitter or in the YouTube comments to hit me up, ask me any questions regarding the Dodgers, and I'll get to as many as I can, answer them. So 45 minutes ago, I turned to Twitter, asked you guys to hit me up with questions. So again, if you want to ask me a question in a future episode, go to my Twitter at Blake Harris TBLA, and I'll get to those questions. So we got a few that I'll get to right now. And I mentioned earlier in the episode, I had an Alex Wood related question that I wanted to get to. So this comes from at Klein25. Does Alex Wood turn it around, or was what we saw against the Giants about what we should expect from him moving forward? I talked about this, I think, back in January when the Dodgers signed Alex Wood, and I talked about this during spring training. The fact that he was essentially guaranteed a spot in the starting rotation, like right away, I wasn't a fan of. I get that when he was with the Dodgers, he was an all-star. He, I think, finished top 10 in Cy Young voting. For the most part, he was a really good starter. Alex Wood looked awful last year in Cincinnati. Now, I know he was coming off an injury where I think he didn't even pitch until September. He only made, I think, like 7, 8 starts, maybe something like that. But he looked awful. And I wasn't a fan of giving him a spot in the starting rotation immediately without even seeing what he was able to do. And so far in this round 2 with the Dodgers, I haven't been too impressed with him. I thought he hasn't looked as good as he once did with the Dodgers. And, when you got guys like Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin coming up, I'd rather have them be in the starting rotation, or even like Ross Stripling. Had the starting rotation been what it should have been, Alex would have been given a spot over a guy like Ross Stripling, which I thought was an absolute joke. I thought Ross Stripling, 1, is a better pitcher, 2, deserved it more than Alex Wood. So 1, I wasn't too thrilled in Alex Wood being guaranteed a start. He didn't look good the other day, struggled with command, throwing just ball after ball after ball, wasn't really getting ahead of hitters, and it looked like he was just getting lit up by the Giants hitters. So I don't know what we can expect from him moving forward. As I mentioned, what I've seen from him so far, I haven't been impressed with. Ideally, what I would like to see, and this is what I've been saying for months, have, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, Ross Stripling in the starting rotation, and have Alex Wood be that lefty that can eat innings in the bullpen. I think Alex Wood coming out of the pen would be an absolute great fit. I remember he did come out of the pen a few times with the Dodgers in his first go around. I don't have what the numbers are in front of me on how he was as a relief pitcher, but I think Alex Wood would fit nicely in the Dodgers bullpen. They desperately need some good lefties there. And again, it would get guys like Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, more opportunities to work in the starting rotation, because that's the future for the Dodgers. Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, those are the guys they're going to be counting on for years to come, not Alex Wood. So can he bounce back? Can he look better? I sure hope so, because the fact he struggled against the Giants, that's not a good sign. So what we can expect, hopefully something better than what we saw on Saturday. All right, time for one more question. This comes from Rip24. Is Austin Barnes bad? At the plate, Austin Barnes is quite bad. He is a below average hitter. I don't think Austin Barnes with the bat is anything that we should be seeing anytime soon, especially when you got Will Smith, who's, by far a much better hitter. But I will say this, Austin Barnes, the reason he does get so many starts still, the reason he still does have a spot with the Dodgers, pitching staff, is the fact he is such a good catcher. He's great at framing. He has a great, relationship with these guys. And he is a much better catcher than Will Smith is, so I will give him that. So he's not necessarily a bad player overall. Hitting-wise, I'd rather have Will Smith at the plate, but, catching-wise, Austin Barnes does so much that just kind of goes unnoticed. And, I do like having him back there. I just wish that they can do it where Austin Barnes catches but Will Smith hits. That'd be the perfect, win-win situation for the two. But I don't think he's bad. I do think he gets kind of a bad rap just because I think his defense does go unnoticed. But yeah, hitting-wise, Barnes, I know people aren't really high on him. I'm not either. It's a scary sight when he goes up there and hits, but that's all the time we have for the Q&A this week. Again, thanks to everyone that asked me the questions. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. That way, whenever I tweet out saying I'm recording the show, you guys can hit me up with any Dodgers-related questions you have. Or you can just leave a comment on this YouTube video with any question you have, and I'll make sure I save it for my next video. But this does wrap up this episode of the Thinking Blue podcast. Again, make sure to follow me on Twitter at BlakeHarrisTBLA. A lot of great Dodgers content. If you're a Dodgers fan, an absolute must follow. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, if you're watching on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on those notifications so you don't miss my next podcast. You guys can also listen over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The link to those is in the description of this video, or you can go to Apple or Spotify, search Thinking Blue with Blake Harris. You can find me there. Make sure to follow me, subscribe, whatever the protocol is over there. Thank you guys for listening, and I will talk to you all very soon.